to you. Welcome along to Sunday Supplement, the show where we digest, analyse and debate the sports stories inside the Sunday papers. As usual, so much to talk about this morning as Arsenal take a stranglehold on the title race. West Ham United move out of the relegation zone while piling the pressure on Spurs. What to make of that Chelsea huddle? Joining me to discuss it all are Craig Hope, Chief Football Reporter at the Daily Mail, who was at Stamford Bridge last night, Miguel Delaney, Chief Football Writer at The Independent, who witnessed Premier League history at the Emirates, and Jack Rosser, Football Reporter for The Sun. He was also at Stamford Bridge. Welcome along, great to have you all here. Let's see what's making the headlines this morning. They think it's all over, is the headline in The Sun after Max Dowman helps Arsenal open up a 9-point lead in the title race. And above that, Earl-hammered but defiant Pep says title race is still on. Max impact is the headline on the front of The Observer after Dowman became the youngest scorer in Premier League history. The Sunday Telegraph focuses on the Six Nations, England's Paris heartbreak after France win with the last kick of the game in Paris. Super Saturday is how the Sunday Times describes events in Paris and Ireland's win over Scotland. The rugby is also the lead in the Mail on Sunday. England go down fighting, and below that, Arteta salutes game-changing Dowman. The Star on Sunday leads with Manchester United and the headline Mission Possible as the club targets winning the title in its 150th anniversary year. While the Sunday Mirror focuses on a huge game at Anfield today and a warning from one of their former players that they will be relegated unless they learn to win ugly. OK, let's start with the title race and the events at the Emirates. A historic day at the Emirates as well. We'll come to Max Dowman in a moment, Miguel, but Saturday, March the 14th, the Sun on Sunday's headline is they think it's all over. Was that the day the title was effectively done for you, do you think?
I wouldn't go that far yet, given the two teams have to play, but it's a very significant step. And I think mostly because, look, obviously one of the defining themes of this season, and especially the last few weeks, has been Arsenal, their visible desire for this, the angst about that 22-year wait, and almost a sense that as good as City have been over the past decade, that Arsenal are kind of playing themselves a little bit. And I think what was so significant about yesterday, because that had been a really testing battle of a game where they didn't look like scoring, to get out of it, I think that can have a transformative psychological effect in itself. They've got the gap, or the points gap, back now at a key moment. And look, City, they have it in them to turn this round. If they beat Arsenal in that big game, you know, the gap could be cut again. But they've got so much to do. And Arsenal, I mean, like, Arsenal now at the point where they can actually count it down. 5 wins in 7. And they've got the league for the first time since 2004.
Craig, if I direct you to Jesse Parker-Humphrey's piece in The Observer, and it picks up on something Miguel said just about the atmosphere at the Emirates. And the article says this stomach-knotting experience is going to be standard for Arsenal as they not so much inch, but maybe millimetre their way to the finish line this season. It's a privilege to get to spend every match at this stage of the season in agonies of anxiety. Try telling Arsenal fans that. It is testament to the position that Arsenal put themselves in, although it's also understandable that any excitement about that has long been tempered by the experiences of seasons past. They are worried it will all go wrong, because they know that in the past it has. But if we're looking at what's happening on the pitch now, is this coming down to Arsenal's consistency and sheer will to win, or maybe City's shortcomings, or maybe a combination of both now?
Well, all of that anxiety and that worry, it felt like during the final 6-7 minutes last night, all of that evaporated. If we go back, as recently as 6-7 weeks ago, it felt like a fan base, online and in the stadium, that was waiting for Arsenal to lose the title. Last night, it felt like a fan base waiting for them to win the title. It feels like there's been a mentality, a mindset shift, not just amongst those on the pitch, but those in the stands as well. And there was a real giddiness and a real excitement about the stadium during the closing stages. And I think a young player like Max Dowman can do that. It's almost like Mikel Arteta's had this wild card, this joker in his back pocket since last summer. I saw him play out in Singapore in pre-season, and you go back to then, and the only surprise I've got is not that he's impacted the way he has, it's that we've had to wait until March to see that. And I just think a young player who can capture hearts and minds, who can instill energy, enthusiasm, excitement in a fan base and in his teammates could just be I use that word, the joker, to give them that final push. And the last 10 days have been huge. 10 days ago, we were talking about a title race and it was still in both teams' hands, given they had that fixture coming up. Well, that's changed. It's been a really, really bruising 10 days now for Manchester City, a brilliant 10 days for Arsenal. And yeah, it's been theirs to lose for a long time. We've been speaking about this and we've been waiting for them to lose it. To come back to what I said now, I think we're waiting for Arsenal to win it.
Jack, Jonathan Northcroft was at the Emirates Stadium as well, and clearly the big headline was Max Dowman. He says, an unforgettable story. Dowman, just 16 years and 73 days old, transformed not just this football match, but he says maybe the whole season, taking this pivotal game in his team's direction. He did it with his utterly prodigious levels of poise, grace and class. And it happened so quickly, you would say, football, bloody hell. But think of Dowman's age. You should not swear in front of kids. Would you go as far as to say that the direction of the title race has been changed by that substitution?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, to touch on Craig's point, we've spoken so much about how the Emirates has been just a ball of nerves in these tighter games, sort of waiting for Arsenal to go one up and then they start kicking on. And it sounded like, Miguel will know better, but it sounded like for 88, 89 minutes yesterday, that's exactly what it was. But a substitution like that just gives everyone something to smile about as well, makes everyone relax, gets everyone behind them again. You probably don't have the fans on their back. And for him to come on and not only perform in a stadium that is going to feel like that and have that angst, and he will be acutely aware of that, having sat on the bench and experienced it, to turn the game like that is fantastic for him. And it's so powerful from Mikel Arteta to almost have held him back and then show the trust to go, come on. And I think he said afterwards he's been giving the same message to Dowman as he did to all his more senior substitutions that he brought on, that this is the time to go and make something special happen, not just get out there and enjoy it, but really make an impact and turn the title race. And I think that is it now.
You were in the stadium, Miguel. Did you actually notice that change in atmosphere, not just when they scored, but maybe when he actually came on?
Yeah, there was the anticipation. And the one thing actually I would say about all of this as well is, again, we've been talking so much about Arsenal angst. Well, now, I mean, even to a small degree, this run-in, it's not just about that. It's now about the excitement and potential of youth in a way that it does invigorate a team. And now, any time he comes on, or if he starts, I mean, Arteta was asked about that for the game on Tuesday, immediately after the game, and he just went, for the first time, calma. Basically, he is still just 16. But, as Jessie touched on her piece as well, I was feeling it myself, because you can't book because of where that press box is. It's right in that section. We're kind of surrounded by fans. They're always looking around to us for any kind of VAR decision, and kind of if something's not going right with the team, they turn around to us and kind of put that in your article and all this. And there was an obvious angst. You could feel that it was going. I have to say, on 87 minutes, just before Dowman's cross, which was itself kind of like a directness that Arsenal had been missing, and for the first time maybe flummoxed Pickford, who had a good game and has recently been having his own save of the season competition. But I was writing about how they badly needed a goal, and David Raya was there. He was looking for a pass to make forward, and nothing was opening, so we had to play it to the side. 87 minutes, and they're playing the ball around their own backline, looking for that goal. And then it's Dowman that actually changes the direction of the game. And he had been doing that from when he came on. And now, any time he plays, there's got to be this buzz. And in a weird way, it's strange to say this about a 16-year-old, but given the kind of pressure around Arsenal attacking and all these debates, he almost takes some of that pressure away, because there's a positive focus on him now.
Craig, Sam Dean was also at the Emirates Stadium from the Sunday Telegraph, and This is nice what he's written here. Every title contender faces occasions such as these: a stubborn opponent, a desperate grind, and a night when one moment of magic is required. Produce that moment and it feels like destiny is on your side. On came Max Dowman, and we know we're going to get these comparisons. A 16-year-old kid who is balancing his GCSEs with the Premier League title challenge. There is going to be a clamour for him now to get even more minutes, maybe even start more games for Arsenal. But he does look like he is someone who will take it in his stride and can handle that kind of pressure.
He does. Just to look at his poise, he's got that lovely straight back. He doesn't look like a 16-year-old. He doesn't carry himself like a 16-year-old. To take it back to last summer, I was out in Singapore covering the pre-season of several Premier League clubs with my young boys, all football fans, and Arsenal were very kind. They said, come along and come in. And Max Dowman was 15 at the time. He scored a hat-trick in training, and my young boys were absolutely blown away by this young man who was only 6 years older than my oldest. I said, can you believe this? And then he comes on the following day against AC Milan and immediately changes the game. He does the same against Newcastle, not insignificant opponents, 3 or 4 days later, which is why I said at the top there, my only surprise is this was the end of July. We're now, in the middle of March? We've had to wait so long to see this prodigious talent be unleashed, and this just feels like the start of something special. Yes, we're talking about Arsenal, we're talking about a title race. I think this conversation will ultimately lead to a World Cup into the States in the summer. He's that good. He's got that charisma about him. Speaking to those on the inside, I think he knows it. There's a little bit of an attitude and a swagger there that he might have to control. But goodness, that's okay, isn't it? Look at the impact he's having. He's special. He really is.
But that's what you need in those moments yesterday as well. Everyone talks about attitude, ego, if somebody fancies themselves a bit. But you can't come on and turn games like that without knowing you've got it in you to do it as well. And yes, it's something you want to keep an eye on and control, especially for a young player, but the best players need that sort of thing. They need to be able to walk onto a pitch in a nervy situation, whether in a title race or with an international team at a major tournament, and know that they can make a difference.
From what I'm told, and that, I mean, like as regards to kind of the attitude as well, yes, they're aware of it. I mean, how couldn't you have that confidence, that ability? But his parents do still ground him. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. But even like Craig was mentioning kind of his ability there and taking on players. I mean, there's the ability. There's actually what he looks like. I mean, he's 6'1". He does look like a man. But also, from what I'm told as well, it's the football brain, which is why Arteta is so confident he can handle it. Like I was told a story that with Arsenal, Arteta's kind of tactical and pressing instructions can be so complex that they take players a while to internalise them. Even like some of their most senior pros took them months to adapt. Apparently, Dowman gets it in seconds. So what they were all raving about last night, from what I'm told, in the Arsenal dressing room was, as that ball was dropping for the chase away, where he actually scores a goal, it's the header they were all raving about. That have it for the 16-year-old, had the presence of mind in that moment, just strain his neck muscles and head the ball forward and down away from Mikalenko, and it left Mikalenko like falling over because he was so surprised by it. But yeah, and he processed that in a millisecond.
He's beaten 2 players to score the goal. We've all focused on the nonchalance of the run from halfway and the brilliant touch in front of himself, but he's actually beaten 2 men to get to that point. It's actually a really clever, cute defensive action to get himself in that attacking position. Yeah, super exciting.
I do like the brief moment when he's sort of just about to put it in there, where he's checking over both shoulders, sort of going, oh my God, I am going to do this. There's just a little flash that this guy is actually 16. He is still human.
Just finally on this, Jack, Sam Dean also writes, Dowman's moment, Arsenal's night, and he asks Arsenal's title with a question: if they do make it over the line, they will look back on this evening as the most crucial of occasions. A night when their brains were tested as much as their bodies, when the cruelest of questions were about to be asked. Bottle? I know we keep asking this question about Arsenal, and he says, how about they bottle this feeling? It could carry them a long, long way. How far could it carry them? Because this could be a special season, maybe even an unprecedented season. It's still on, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a chance for it to be an absolutely incredible season. I think, that question that Sam puts about the bottle and all the chat that there's been around Arsenal this season of whether they're going to slip up or not. They don't play again in the Premier League until April the 11th, I think. And that's a long time to go, having maybe drawn 0-0 at home to Everton. You can go away and do something in the Champions League. You can go and get through to the semi-finals of the FA Cup. You can win the Carabao Cup against City. But their main goal, whether it's a quadruple or what that they're chasing, all they want this season really is the Premier League. And if that was in the back of their minds between now and nearly the middle of April, that would have been a big problem for Mikel Arteta.
Welcome back to Sunday Supplement. Welcome back, Craig Hope, Miguel Delaney and Jack Rosser. Let's focus on, well, potentially damaging result for Manchester City. We did speak about it in relation to Arsenal and the title race, Craig. Title blow for Pep as defiant West Ham hold off City is the Mail on Sunday's headline. Historically, under Pep, we often say, no, Manchester City are capable of reeling off 9, 10, 11 wins in a row. This doesn't feel like that same City, does it?
Well, if you go back as recently as 2 weeks, we were saying it might be they'd won 6 on the spin. They weren't necessarily clicking. You know, Erling Haaland has only got 1 goal since Christmas, but there was something there where they were just starting to motor into machine mode. We've seen it before in Manchester City when they do get to this business end where they've got that mentality, that resilience, that muscle memory to put results together. But yeah, the last 2 against Nottingham Forest, now against West Ham, well, that's all come unstuck. And what I will say is they've been unfortunate to come up against a West Ham team who do have that own doggedness of their own now and really are making a fight of staying up. If Manchester City had 24 shots against Tottenham, they probably would have won 12-0. But West Ham have actually found something now. City didn't play poorly last night, but to come back to something I touched on there, they're not able to convert on these areas, positions of promise. They're 24 shots, and for Erling Haaland not to score a goal now, what is it, 2 since Christmas, only 1 from open play for a player who, and goals mask everything, you know. If Erling Haaland nicks one last night and it's 2-1, we're talking about a title race being on. You can't get a tune out of Phil Foden. You know, Phil Foden, who came on for the last 17 minutes. I think he hasn't scored since Christmas. Ryan Cherky, a player who showed great promise in the opening weeks of the season. Where's he gone now? They had the bounce in January, the 2 new signings of Semenyo and Gueye, but that was almost, it seems like, that is what carried them through that 6-game winning run. That's worn off. And there just seems to be, and this comes from the top in terms of Pep, there just seems to be, there's something there which isn't quite right. It's been there all season. That 6-match winning run masked it to a degree. But now I think we could see their season unravel and the title race might be over a lot quicker than we perhaps expected.
Miguel, Craig says that we might see the season unravel. Oliver Holt, who was at the London Stadium, says, beware the Ides of March, they told an emperor once. And as Sunday dawns, Pep Guardiola will wake knowing that this may have been the weekend when the Premier League title slipped away from his Manchester City team. It may have been the weekend when the decisive blows were struck. But if you go back a few days as well, it feels almost like a season-defining week in the wrong way for Manchester City following what happened in Madrid as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially given we know Guardiola's really obsession with what the Champions League is and what it represents. And given that Ollie's talking about empires there, it's hard not to get into kind of bigger themes here because I must say I do wonder whether we can point at a lot of issues with City right now. I wonder as how much of it is actually about Guardiola himself, and especially given the way, like City are to a degree are doing what they always do. They've obviously they've recruited well, I would say. There are good, promising players there, as there should be when they spend so much. They've revitalised the team. I mean, even in January alone, let's not forget, they did sign a forward everyone wanted in Semenyo and a defender everyone wanted in Gueye. So they've got a lot in place in the way they have over the last decade, even allowing for the fact this is probably the most changes they've made in the season. But so much of the club is still anchored towards one man, who is like one of the great figures in football history, and and it's his aura and everything he represents, not only that Barcelona ideology and everything, he imports that to City. And now this just comes at a moment where, for the 3rd season in a row, there's been proper kind of debate or discussion around his future. A lot of people talking openly about, well, if he leaves in the summer. And even Guardiola himself. I mean, there was a bit of an odd moment after the game yesterday where it was brought up to him that he'd said in his press conference, well, you said it's title over if you don't win this game. And he asked, who said that? Or along those lines. You did. Even this, there's been a lot of moments where suddenly he hasn't done a press conference before a game, or he's been away a lot. And it's hard not to wonder whether he's as in tune with all this as he was 2 years ago, which makes a difference for a coach who's famously so intense and can bring his players to those higher levels.
And especially when it's a manager that so many of them go there for.
Yeah.
You speak to anyone that's signed for City or you read whatever they've had to say when they've joined the club and turned other people down. Semenyo had loads of options. Gueye could have waited until the summer and had his pick of everyone across Europe, but they all go there to work with Guardiola. And if they find a manager that maybe doesn't quite live up to what they were hoping for, isn't quite as in, or there's even the slightest doubt that he's not as invested as they thought he might be, then that, when the whole club is geared towards him, is going to have an impact across the squad, across the club.
And it's funny that because a lot of people have drawn parallels between the Donnarumma signing and Van Persie with Ferguson in 2012. That Ferguson did Van Persie because he wanted to win either the title or Champions League in his last season, and Donnarumma felt the same with Guardiola. And I remember there's that famous story about when Ferguson announced his retirement to the United squad. He said, "I know some of you come here to work with me." It's exactly what you're talking about. But look, this is all speculation for the moment. But again, that speculation, that City themselves do refer to it as such. Yeah. It's still swirling around.
And it's got another manager sacked already this season in Enzo Maresca, hasn't it? There's so much talk about it that it's impacted other clubs as well.
It's felt for a while now as if Pep wants this season to end with the title, so he can ride off into the sunset. And the further they get away from that title, I think we'll see that anxiety and that angst come through. Perhaps he'll start scratching his head again. Now, I was at St James's Park last weekend when Pep picked up the booking. This was an FA Cup game, which meant he was in the stands last night. And it didn't so much seem about that game, because Manchester City played well. They were comfortable winners in the end against Newcastle. I think it spoke more to the draw against Nottingham Forest a few days previous, and just that anxiety and that irritation creeping in again, and Pep slamming his coat on the floor in protest at a refereeing decision that was a 50-50 really. So we're seeing that return now, and I only think it's going to unravel more before the end of the season, because we've all heard it, we've all written about it, we've spoken about it. The feeling in the game is that Pep ideally would go this summer.
Jack, just picking up on what you said there on potential player recruitment and them wanting to come to City because Pep Guardiola is there, how big a problem is this for City as well for forward planning with regard to recruiting a new manager? Because if they are, and probably some would say rightly, allowing Pep Guardiola to decide when he goes as opposed to the other way around, they're almost behest to when he is going to make that decision, be it this summer or the following summer. And that, with it, will bring problems with regard to their managerial planning.
Absolutely. That when these situations arise is put to managers. It's happened with Oliver Glasner at Crystal Palace as well. All of that sort of wondering if will he, won't he, until he made the announcement. You put that to him, he says, "Oh, no. Players will come here because they want to come here." It's never really true. Players don't want uncertainty. It's priced in football that things can change very quickly. But if you're making a huge decision on your career, which players joining a club like Manchester City, that is a huge decision in terms of going there, or maybe going to Spain, going to another big club in the Premier League. Guardiola is the one that swings it for a lot of them. And if there's uncertainty there, I'm sure they'll still be able to convince a lot of top players to join the club. But it certainly won't help their case if they're going out and, in the next few weeks, the next few months before the summer, can't tell a player who the manager's going to be next season.
Craig alluded to it in his opening answer on this, Miguel. There was, of course, another team here at the London Stadium in West Ham United who looked down and out and as good as relegated all but a few weeks ago. Now they are showing such fight, but also you can feel a unity between the fans and the players again, can't you?
Yeah, and you have to credit Nuno with that, I have to say, because, look, it's only a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago, we were talking about West Ham being a basket case, and maybe there's a few in the Premier League at the moment, and that their form was a product of kind of wider issues at the club, the lack of planning for so long. And to be fair to Nuno, he's imposed order in so many ways. And I remember thinking it after the 0-0 at home against Bournemouth. And I don't mean this in a disrespectful sense, but can they actually draw their way to the title? As in, because they're going to make every single game now difficult for who they're playing. Obviously, they were missing Somerville last night, but then I think that was, again, it spoke to their resolve that they could have collapsed after City's got that goal, but to immediately respond in the way they did, especially without a player like Somerville. And they've got fight now, and I have to say, unless something drastically changes at Tottenham, which we are going to get to, I think West Ham will definitely stay up.
The big surprise is the mood and the feel inside the London Stadium. The London Stadium is what the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium should be, and the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is everything we thought the London Stadium was in terms of that detachment. But you looked at the noise there last night, albeit, watching on television, and you could feel that connection between those on the pitch and those in the stands. And how often have we said that about West Ham and the London Stadium in recent years? We haven't really, and it just goes to show that I think the inspiration first has got to come from those on the pitch. And Nuno's achieved that. They've got some good players. Somerville is missing through injury, but Somerville, Bowen, they're exciting. You were looking at West Ham 4 or 5 weeks ago, and I think, I'm speaking to someone in recruitment about this, and you looked at their team, and if they went down, there's 2 or 3 there who you really would fancy taking. I don't think they're going to go down now. They've got that feel-good, they've got that positive momentum, and defenders in Mavropanos and Todibo who looked, they've got all the makings and the profile of defenders who take a team down. Well, they were resilient last night. They put their bodies on the line quite literally in terms of Mavropanos getting the one in the face. I agree with Miguel. I think West Ham now, out of those teams down there, are the one I'd back more than any other to stay up.
It's also, you mentioned Mavropanos and Todibo. Dizazi has made such a good impact, having not played for the whole entire first half of the season, gone backwards and forwards on where he wanted to go in January, finally gone to West Ham. He's been absolutely incredible for them. And their January has transformed this. Nuno spoke about wanting to rebalance the squad. There's been so much talk about how they do their transfer business. It's David Sullivan and Karen Brady in charge of it at the moment since they got rid of their last director of football, and that being symptomatic of why the club is a basket case, as you mentioned. There's been a lot of criticism for that. But what they did in January in getting rid of Lucas Paqueta, that's allowed Somerville to go and score 7 in 10. Fernandes has come to the fore. They sold Guilherme as well, which meant they balanced out in terms of their net spend, what they brought in. The 2 strikers have taken the weight off Bowen a bit, allowed him to return to a bit of form. Their January has changed everything, and they look a completely different team.
Jack, just staying with you, we're just going to talk about events, some might say bizarre events, at Stamford Bridge. And I know you were there. The Sun on Sunday goes with "stuck in the middle with blue," which absolutely sums it all up. And Alison Rudd in the Sunday Times sums it up pretty nicely as well. The game also came with a touch of the surreal as Chelsea's pre-match huddle embraced Paul Tierney, the referee, who looked surprisingly sanguine about it, unlike Liam Rosenior. You were there. Just begin to tell us what you made of that.
It's quite telling that, sat in the press box, a couple of us who didn't see it happen in the moment because you're talking or looking at other bits and pieces, the image quite quickly pops up. And it took us quite a while to work out if it was AI or not. Just the way you sat there going, he can't have been doing that. It was so bizarre, and I think both sides have made themselves look silly, really. Paul Tierney's clearly trying to make a point. It's premeditated. Liam Rosenior complained afterwards that in the pre-match meeting, the coaches and officials that was the first thing he spoke about. And it's something they've been doing for quite a while under Rosenior now. What made it even more bizarre, from the Chelsea side, I don't really get why they have to do it. I don't mind them doing a huddle, lots of teams do it. I don't really understand why they have to do it on the centre circle. Rosenior came out with something about them respecting the ball, which we in the press room, we all did well not to burst out laughing in that moment.
I couldn't type quickly enough. No. Said we were respecting the ball. You've got to get that out there. We were in the press room afterwards, and there's 20, 30 guys in there, and we were respecting the ball. And then he went on to say they were going to complain to the PGMOL about a decision which wasn't a penalty. It was this fuzzy thinking. And on Rosenior as well, I think that huddle doesn't reflect well. I don't think it reflects well on the captain, Reece James. Doesn't reflect well on the players. It was weird. It was immature. It was childish. It was strange, really. And then for Rosenior to come out afterwards, and he didn't really own it, did he? He put it back.
No, he said, "This is my players have made this decision."
On the players, and there's a peculiarity about Liam Rosenior, and you watch from afar, and when he first comes in, you think, well, that's okay. Everyone's got their quirks. He's a little bit Brent-like. Well, there's nothing wrong with Brent. We all want to be chilled-out entertainers, but you think it might actually be a strength of his. The more time goes on, we were in that press conference last night, I actually think these quirks and the oddity of Liam Rosenior might actually be a weakness over time, and it just does now start to feel as if Chelsea's season, 1 win in 5 in the Premier League, dropping out of the top 5, the defeat in Paris, it feels like it's beginning to unravel a little bit, and that last night wasn't a good look.
It's his main complaint about the referee was that he's focusing on something that doesn't matter. So why do it?
Yeah,
if it doesn't matter, why do it there? It's all this. They've got a coach in Willie Isa who's all about culture and everything like that, and it's a big thing at a lot of clubs. What difference is doing that over a ball in front of your fans? A lot of teams, I think Arsenal go in front of their away fans when they're home and do a huddle. What a nice image that is, all of that. Why do you need to go and try and dominate the middle of the pitch or whatever that means? They all look silly, and messing about and hugging the ref, like Craig said, it's immature. If you do that and then put in a flat, immature performance, it doesn't look good.
That's it. Like as you said, everyone involved looks silly, including the ref. Like suddenly, that almost affects his authority. Like the fact that Palmer had his arm around him there. I mean, I'm taking out a yellow card, like in football, as you know, as trivial as it is, but as seriously as you all take it, for parties to look silly like that, I mean, that's not exactly what you want. And I think, Craig, just on Rossinior's, I suppose, quirks. Because the irony to that is, or not the irony, but the thing, what people say about him, what a lot of opposition coaches say, is that he's really, really good at, especially at in-game changes, and he gives you things to think about that you don't expect. Which is why, then, as you say, like, to have all the focus being on all these kind of extraneous elements, and like as you talk about, something that ultimately shouldn't matter, but it starts to because of the noise around football.
Well, his in-game changes last night, his costume changes, he had more than Lady Gaga. The gilet and the jacket was on, it was off, it was on, it was off, and I think that betrayed what is a chaotic and irritated mind on the back of what's been a pretty difficult week.
Right,